Hello, glad to see you on the channel. Subscribe, leave a like, and don't forget to write a comment. Enjoy watching.
The thing about silence is, it never walks in alone. It always drags something behind it, shame, memory, maybe even rage with a fresh coat of politeness slapped over it. That night, I didn't plan to snap. I wasn't even sure I could anymore. There's something about being compared to someone your whole life that burns you hollow, like a tree that looks solid until the first hard wind. And let me tell you, I've had hurricanes blowing through me since I was old enough to understand what my mother really thought of me. We were sitting around her antique oak table, the one she refinished herself back in the 90s when she still smoked Virginia Slims on the back porch and pretended she was too classy for boxed wine. The meatloaf was dry, as always. The mashed potatoes were instant. Danielle was droning on about her new sunroom, how she was choosing between linen curtains and sheer voile because light, when filtered correctly, makes the whole house feel honest. I wanted to ask if she realized how full of shit that sounded, but I held back. She wouldn't get it anyway. Then Mom looked right at me. Fork in hand, knife cutting nothing, just pointed at my plate like a schoolteacher disciplining a slow kid in math class. "I just don't understand," she said, pausing long enough for Danielle to lean in like it was her cue, "why you're not more like your sister." Just like that. No lead-in. No smile. No warmth. She might as well have slapped me across the mouth. Danielle didn't even flinch. She'd heard it too many times to notice. I stared at her, then glanced at Danielle, who offered that smug, tight-lipped smile of someone who's used to winning prizes they never earned. I think she thought I'd argue, or protest, or joke it off like I usually do. But I didn't. I didn't even blink. Because in that moment, I was already somewhere else, somewhere very old and very cold, a memory like a bruise that had never gone away. Mom used to say things like that when we were kids. Back then, it was more subtle. Danielle got the new clothes, I got the hand-me-downs. She got piano lessons, I got a lecture about budgeting. She got to go to prom in a rented limo. I got grounded for coming home 10 minutes late from mine. I remember once, when I was maybe 12, I asked Mom if she thought I was pretty. She didn't even look up from the crossword puzzle and said, "You've got a nice personality, Jess. That's what matters." That night at dinner, the fork never hit the plate. I just sat there, holding it midair like I might drop it or jab it into the table just to make a sound, any sound louder than the one echoing in my head. Why are you more like your sister? Because I'm not a liar? Because I didn't sleep with my professor to pass senior year? Because I didn't fake a miscarriage to keep a man who was already cheating? I didn't say any of that out loud, of course. That would have ruined the show. And I was planning a better ending than that. So I chewed a piece of dry meatloaf, smiled politely, and said, "She's got a good sunroom. You must be proud." Mom nodded, like I'd finally understood the lesson. But in my pocket, my phone buzzed. A reminder I'd set an hour earlier, a tiny vibration that pulsed against my thigh like a second heartbeat. Time to send the message. I excused myself to the bathroom, told them I needed to fix my eyeliner. My eyeliner had been gone for years. I opened the message I'd written and rewritten a dozen times over the past month. No greeting. No fluff. Just 10 words. "Remember the cottage, August 92. I do. Clearly. Sent." Back at the table, Danielle was laughing about something stupid, how her dog had eaten half a yoga mat or something. I couldn't hear her. My ears were roaring with the weight of what I'd just done. I looked at Mom. She was smiling now, sipping wine from a glass that probably hadn't been washed properly. Maybe she thought she'd gotten through to me. Maybe she thought I'd finally understood how lucky I was to sit at that table and be compared to a woman who built her entire life on keeping secrets. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was waiting. Because that message was a match and the house was soaked in gasoline. Let me ask you something. When someone drops a comment like that, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" In the middle of dinner, in the middle of your goddamn life, do you respond? Or do you sit with it? Let it sink into your bones until it becomes your spine? Have you ever had someone look you in the eye and compare you to the person who ruined your life and still expect you to smile? Danielle went back to her wine. Mom was cutting into her overcooked meatloaf like it owed her money. I sat back, folded my hands in my lap, and smiled. They had no idea what I'd just done. And honestly, that was the best part. There's a silence that lives in the bones, the kind that doesn't come from peace, but from years of not being heard, and that silence is where I sat for the rest of the night after I sent the message. I watched them laugh, watched Danielle reapply her lipstick like she wasn't hiding behind it, and watched my mother sip her second glass of wine like she hadn't just sliced me open with a single sentence. That message, those 10 simple words, remember the cottage, August 92. I do. Clearly, they were a scalpel to the part of our family that pretended it healed, but never really did. I drove home with the radio off, headlights swallowing the road in slow gulps, heart beating like a drum I didn't know how to quiet. It had been 25 years since that August, but the memory never aged, never dulled, never even blinked. It stayed bright and raw in my mind like it happened yesterday. The way the trees swayed outside the cottage, the sound of the screen door slamming behind Danielle as she ran out crying, the confusion on Mom's face when she looked at me like I'd done something unspeakable. Like I was the monster. That night, back in my small, quiet apartment, I poured a glass of cheap red wine and waited. I didn't even bother turning on the lights. I sat in the dark like I was holding vigil over something sacred or maybe damned. My phone buzzed once at exactly 11:33. It was Mom. Don't you dare bring that up. 8 words, all in caps. Like yelling through a text could somehow rewind time, like screaming at me now could silence what she refused to hear back then. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I took another sip of wine and let the past roll back like a wave finally crashing on the shore after 2.5 decades of holding its breath. Danielle had been 16 that summer. I was 14, still gangly and unsure, already living in her shadow. Dad had booked us 2 weeks in a rented lake cottage, one of those places that looked charming in the brochure but smelled like mildew and regret when you walked through the door. It was the last real vacation before he died, though none of us knew that then. On the 3rd night, Danielle came home late. Her mascara was smudged, her shirt inside out, and there was something in her eyes I'd never seen before, fear mixed with calculation. I was sitting on the porch reading when she came up the steps. She froze when she saw me and hissed, "You didn't see me. You understand?" I didn't understand, not then. But I nodded like a good little sister should. An hour later, Mom was standing over me, fists clenched, voice shaking. "Why would you do something like that to your sister?" she asked. "She's crying in the bathroom because of you." She said you, God, Jessica, how could you? I didn't know what she was talking about. Danielle had lied. About everything. About me. And Mom had believed her without asking a single question. I spent the rest of that vacation grounded in a room with no air conditioning, listening to Danielle laugh on the dock and tell Mom stories about how guilty I felt. And Dad just looked tired. He didn't take sides, but he didn't stop it either. I think he thought it would blow over. He died that October. Nothing ever blew over again. You'd think 25 years would smooth the edges off something like that, but it didn't. Not even close. Danielle went on to college. I stayed home. Danielle got the tearful farewell at the airport. I got told to help with the dishes, since I wasn't going anywhere anyway. The lies of that summer became the truth everyone lived with, and I swallowed it like medicine I didn't ask for. Every single day. That's why the message mattered. Because I'd spent most of my life letting other people tell my story. That text was the first time I said, no, I remember it too, and I'm not playing dead anymore. Danielle didn't respond that night. Not even a word. She always was the type to run first, react later. But her silence was louder than any reply. I knew she saw it. I knew she felt it. Probably sat up in that shiny white kitchen of hers, staring at the words over and over again like they were a grenade without a pin. And just to make sure she didn't sleep easy, I did something petty. I admit it. I mailed a copy of an old Polaroid, me and her at the cottage, her face tight with worry, mine blank and wide-eyed. No note, no return address, just the photo. She'd know what it meant. I didn't need to explain. Here's the funny part. It's been over 15 years since that summer. Wait, no, sorry, 25. Math's never been my thing. Maybe because I spent more time learning how to lie with a smile than how to solve for X. Still, you never forget the arithmetic of betrayal. One lie, one belief, one ruined relationship. Add it all up and you get a lifetime of silence. But that was ending now. And if Danielle and Mom thought that one message was the whole story, they really didn't understand me at all. There's a kind of quiet that doesn't come with peace, a silence that settles not like dust, but like concrete. You feel it in your chest, in your gut, in the back of your throat every time you think about speaking and decide not to. That was me for the next 3 days after I sent that message. I didn't follow up. I didn't call. I didn't explain. I just let it sit there like a ticking clock on a bomb, only I could hear counting down. Danielle didn't write back. That didn't surprise me. She's the type who thinks control is silence, like if she doesn't acknowledge something, it doesn't exist. But it does. Oh, it does. Especially things you bury. Especially when you bury them shallow and in the wrong damn soil. See, people think the truth disappears if you don't talk about it. But the truth's a stubborn thing. It doesn't rot. It waits. And mine had waited long enough. Back in August of '92, it was a Tuesday night, hot and sticky in that way only East Coast lake towns know. The kind of heat that makes you sweat in your sleep and curse the sound of cicadas. Danielle had gone out with a boy named Mike. He was older. She was trying too hard. I stayed back at the cottage reading a book I didn't even like because nobody asked me to come. Sometime after midnight, the door banged open and she stumbled in. Her shirt was wet, she smelled like gasoline and cheap beer, and she looked straight at me and said, "It wasn't my fault. You need to help me." She dragged me out to the dirt road where Dad's car was jammed sideways against a tree. Headlight hanging like a broken eye. Front fender curled like a ripped page. No blood, no bodies. Just wreckage. I remember standing there thinking, if I say nothing, she's ruined. But if I help her, if I lie for her, then maybe she'll finally owe me something. Maybe Mom will finally see I'm loyal. I was a stupid kid. Stupid enough to walk all the way back to the cottage, wait for Mom to wake up, and tell her it was me. I was curious. I took the keys. I didn't see the turn. She believed it like she wanted to. She didn't yell. She didn't punish me. She just looked disappointed, like I'd let her down in a way that proved her suspicions. Danielle stayed quiet. That afternoon, she made me a peanut butter sandwich like nothing had happened. I was 14. I ate it. Dad died a week later, heart attack, fast and final. Mom said it was stress, said he'd been upset about the accident. I never asked if he believed me. I never even told him the truth. After he was gone, Mom leaned into her grief like it was a performance and gave Danielle everything, her attention, her approval, her best version of love, which was usually just selective listening and financial help. I didn't just get left behind. I got erased. But here's what Danielle and Mom never knew, not back then. I found the bottle. Hidden behind the shed, half empty, reeking of Mike's cologne and rum. I found the shoe print in the mud next to the tree that didn't match mine. I found the note Danielle dropped ripped in half, but still readable, that said, "Call me if she talks. You owe me." I didn't understand it then. I do now. So I kept it. All of it. Tucked in a box at the back of my closet for over 2 decades. Never once opened. Never shown to anyone. Just sitting there like a lit match in a paper house, waiting for the right time. 3 days after I sent that message, my phone rang. Number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail because I knew who it was. I knew the voice before it even spoke. "Hey, Jess. It's Kevin. Danielle's husband. Listen, I don't know what you did or what's going on, but she's completely losing it over here. She's crying nonstop, locked herself in the guest room. Keeps saying you're about to destroy her life. Can you please just tell me what the hell is happening? He didn't sound angry. He sounded scared. Scared of me, maybe? Or scared of what his wife might have finally confessed to him after all these years. Either way, it made my skin crawl in the best possible way. Because Danielle, the golden daughter, was cracking. And this wasn't a story she could pretty up with some new curtains or a Facebook post about personal growth. I didn't call him back. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what I was doing. And for the first time in my life, I knew they were finally starting to see it. Because the things we bury don't stay dead. Not forever. Some of them come back stronger, sharper, hungrier. And I had just started digging. The funny thing about pretending is that it only works for so long, like a leaking ceiling you paint over instead of fixing. Eventually the stain comes back, bigger and darker and far too obvious to ignore. Danielle had spent her entire life perfecting that mask, the one with the tight smile and the voice that could sell sincerity like it was on clearance. She fooled neighbors, husbands, old high school friends, and especially our mother. But masks aren't made to last forever, and the cracks were finally starting to show. I didn't have to dig hard to find the soft spots. Her husband's call had already told me more than he meant to. When someone's voice trembles like that, when their sentences trail off and they don't ask what happened but instead ask, "What did you do?" that tells you everything you need to know about how close they already are to the edge. Danielle wasn't unraveling because I'd threatened to tell the truth. She was unraveling because she knew the truth had teeth, and it had started biting. I spent the next week in the same routine I'd perfected over years of going unnoticed. I went to work, came home, drank lukewarm coffee in chipped mugs, answered emails with half interest. But under it all, I was watching, waiting, tightening every screw in the plan I'd built in silence for years. I didn't want a confrontation. I didn't want screaming matches or crying apologies. I wanted something colder, something cleaner. I wanted justice. See, Danielle didn't just lie about the car. That wasn't her only sin. That was just the first stone in the avalanche. In her 20s, fresh out of college with a shiny communications degree and a ring from a man with more charm than sense, she'd landed a job at a nonprofit through one of Mom's bridge club friends. Nothing fancy, just admin work, answering phones, typing memos. But it didn't stay small. By the time she was 30, she'd been promoted twice, then slid into a cushy spot on a partner board of a financial development firm that supported community projects. What they actually did, though, was move money around like it was chess pieces, funding fake foundations that funneled donations right back into the hands of the people who'd written the checks. Nobody talked about it. Nobody went to jail. Because the paper trail was washed clean, and Mom, good old Ruth, had greased more than one wheel to make sure Danielle never got caught up in the fallout. I remembered that summer too. Not just 92, but '08. I'd just lost my job, had nowhere to go, was sleeping on Mom's sofa under that damn oil painting of the Maine coast she never shut up about. Danielle was there too, back in town for some fundraising event, and I heard them through the wall, talking like lawyers in a bad crime show. "If the auditors start digging," Danielle said, voice too sharp for wine-drunk honesty, "they'll find that payout memo." Mom's reply was swift and steady. "Then you'll make it disappear. Call Jerome. He owes me. You think that'll work?" "Everything works if you don't get emotional. Just fix it quietly, Danielle. Don't make this a scene." I laid there with my pillow over my face, swallowing the sound of their corruption like it was secondhand smoke. I didn't have power then, but I do now. So I did the only thing they never expected me to do. I wrote it all down. Dates, names, amounts. Every detail I remembered. I wrote it with surgical precision and uploaded it to the firm's anonymous whistleblower portal, the one buried in the legal section of their site, the one Danielle probably never thought anyone with her last name would ever visit. I attached an old email thread Danielle once forwarded me by mistake, proof of a reallocation to a project that never existed. I didn't sign it. I didn't have to. 2 days later, I got the email. Subject line: formal notice of preliminary review. Inside, we've opened an internal investigation. Thank you for your submission. Just like that, the floor under her carefully curated world shifted. She could try to plug the leaks, could try to sweet-talk the board, maybe even lean on Mom for one last favor. But this wasn't just a lie from a teenager anymore. This was money. This was criminal. This was real. I didn't check in on her. I didn't have to. People like Danielle depend on silence to survive, and I'd finally stopped being quiet. She was probably pacing her kitchen, rereading board emails, trying to calculate how fast secrets could move when someone like me decided to stop playing dead. Let me be clear, I didn't do this because I hated her. I did it because I needed to know I wasn't crazy. That I didn't imagine the years of being sidelined, the birthdays forgotten, the awards shrugged off, the moments I tried to reach for love and got lectured instead. I needed to prove, if only to myself, that I'd seen it all clearly. That I wasn't the broken one. That I'd been awake the whole time while they told me I was just being difficult or jealous or dramatic. No, I wasn't any of those things. I was right. And now she knew it. Mom knew it. And the rest of the world was about to know it too. It was a Tuesday morning when she called, calm, composed, her voice brittle around the edges like porcelain that's been dropped too many times but never quite shattered. Jessica, she said, not Jess, never Jess when things got serious. I think we should talk. Just you and me. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch until she had to swallow it, until she heard the rustle of my breath on the other end. Fine, I said. Somewhere public. Neutral ground. That word, neutral, tasted strange on my tongue, like something foreign, because nothing about us had ever been neutral. Not love. Not discipline. Not even grief. Especially not grief. We met at a quiet cafe on the west side of town, the kind of place with chipped mugs and stale muffins that people mistake for charming. She was already there when I arrived, sitting upright with her hands folded tight in her lap, like she was waiting for a doctor to deliver a prognosis she already suspected. Her lipstick was a little smeared, her hair less composed than usual. She didn't stand when I approached. Just looked up and said, "Thank you for coming." I sat across from her, didn't bother to take off my coat. I ordered a black coffee, even though I hate the taste, because I needed something to hold. Something hot. Something grounding. She didn't order anything. That told me everything I needed to know about her state of mind. Ruth Miller never skipped coffee unless something was unraveling fast behind her eyes. I think, she began, and then stopped, like even thinking out loud was too dangerous. Danielle's in real trouble. She said it not with fear or panic, but with something closer to disbelief. As if the possibility that her golden daughter could fall from grace had never been part of the blueprint. I didn't respond. I watched her. I wanted her to fill the space, to hear the emptiness between her words. And she did. She's being investigated. Financial misconduct. Misappropriation of donor funds. She looked at me now, hard and direct. You had something to do with this. I know you did. I didn't lie. I didn't confirm either. I just sipped the coffee, bitter and burnt, and let the moment sit like a weight on the table between us. I don't understand, she said after a long pause, voice cracking just a hair, enough for me to hear the truth beneath it. Why are you doing this? What do you want from us? There it was. Not are you okay? Not why didn't you come to me? Not even what did I miss? Just what do you want? Still a transaction. Still a negotiation. Still the idea that I was only acting out because I wanted something I hadn't been given. So I gave her an answer. Nothing, I said quietly. I already took it. She blinked like I'd slapped her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't smile. I just let the words hang in the air like smoke from a fire long since burned out. I wanted you to see what I could be, I continued, when I finally stopped trying to be like her. That landed. I saw it hit, not in her posture, which stayed straight, or her face, which barely flinched, but in her hands. She gripped the edge of the table like she was trying to hold on to something slipping away fast. She asked me again, softer this time, Jessica, what do you want? I leaned forward just enough to make sure she heard me right, just enough to make sure she'd never forget. I wanted you to feel what I felt. That's all. Not for a year. Not for a month. Just once. She opened her mouth to speak, but I was already standing. My coffee mug left a ring on the table. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't look back. That afternoon, I drove straight to the edge of the state, past towns I'd never meant to visit and places where no one knew my name. I didn't pack much. Just the essentials and the box I'd kept hidden for over 2 decades, the box with the photo, the note, the things I said I'd never use and then used anyway. When I got to the coastal rental I'd signed for under a different name, I turned off my phone and tossed it in the drawer beneath the chip sink. I didn't need it anymore. I sat on the porch that evening, watching the ocean roll in and out like breath from something bigger than regret, and I wondered, for the first time in a long time, what it meant to feel clean. Not forgiven. Just clean. Like there was no more pretending. There's a thing people don't tell you about revenge. It doesn't fill you. It doesn't fix anything. But sometimes, it's the only way to even the goddamn score. And still, I couldn't let it end clean. Not really. Because as I sat there, alone with nothing but wind and salt and silence, I whispered it once, only to myself. The line I'd never said out loud, not to anyone. Not even her. I never said Danielle was the one who crashed the car. And maybe that's true. Or maybe it isn't. Maybe the point was never about truth. Maybe it was about finally having the power to make them ask the question. About finally putting the doubt in their heads the way they put it in mine. Because some ghosts don't just haunt. Some ghosts come home to eat.